Welcome to Simmons Says, where I help emerging and struggling writers create intriguing plots and compelling characters to make their stories hard to put down and even harder to forget. Hi, welcome to another episode of Simmons Says, where I strive to help you figure out what happens next in your story. Today, I'm going to ask a question. What is probably the scariest thing that writers face, whether you're an aspiring or emerging writer, or even a struggling writer who's been at it for more years than maybe you want to count? That's what we're going to look at today, and we're going to look at it through my lens, talking about an experience that I had. I don't remember the first time I sold something as a writer. I was young, because everybody is at one time or another. And I think I was somewhere in my 20s, maybe even my early 30s. And I think it was an interview with a musician for a small fledgling industry magazine. I mean, nothing glamorous. I mean, we're not talking big deal here. I was feeling pretty good about, I sold this, and I was going to see my work in print, and that was exciting. But at the time, I had no idea that I was going to face somewhere in the future one of the scariest things that any writer could ever encounter. Let me try and set this up for you. It wasn't that long ago, during COVID, so we're talking 2020, and the world was pretty shaken at that point. We were gripped by fear and anger and frustration and pain and loss and sorrow. People were losing their jobs, their businesses, things were shutting down. And the big question on just about everybody's mind, I mean, on a global scale, was the world even going to survive? And if we did, what would it look like? What would be left? So, with all that uncertainty and all that fear and pain and everything, in the middle of all that, I was incredibly fortunate. My family was in one place and we were together and we were all healthy at that time. And I had work. I could write, and I also could teach remotely via Zoom. I had a gig a few days a week teaching creative writing. So I had income. I had my family safe and I had income. And then I received what you have to look at as a great gift. I received a choice assignment, a graphic novel, and I had written comics for years, so I knew that was my wheelhouse. It was right in my wheelhouse. And it had everything. It had adventure, it had history, multicultural aspects and layers and research, and the kind of project that someone like me hopes for. It was a gem. And every single day for months, because I had that kind of time, every single day for months, I struggled to write just even a single page. I mean, just one page. Sometimes it was barely a panel or two. I often sort of refer to it. It's like trying to dig my way out of a coal mine with a nail file. And I couldn't understand it. I mean, again, all the elements that I normally worked with, all the things that I enjoyed, were in this package. So why couldn't I do it? What was going on? This was work that I loved. And the deadline, it came and went, the first one, and they extended it. They were nice. They were good. Hey, again, the world was in turmoil, so people were giving leeway here, a little bit of extension, a little bit of patience, a little bit of understanding. But eventually, after about a year, project was canceled, and I hadn't even really fully completed a full rough first draft. And yeah, I still had some other work and all that, but I couldn't understand why this was happening to me. And I'm staring at the screen and I'm trying to make sense of it, and it's not. And I felt incredibly beaten, defeated, lost. I mean, the kind of thoughts that go through your mind at that time is, maybe I can't do this anymore. Maybe it was all a lie to begin with. Maybe somehow I was lucky. All those other projects I worked on, I just happened to eke out. Something worked at that moment, but it was all shot now. Because obviously I hadn't been able to do this. So maybe I was done. And that was what I kept hearing in my head. And that was the lie. At the moment, it felt real and genuine and authentic, but it was a lie. And for that time period, I was in the middle of it. I looked at my past work and that didn't help. And I looked at the unfinished manuscript and I felt even lower and worse and scared. And this isn't going to have that kind of Hollywood happy ending where, suddenly I was inspired and I finished it and the publisher came back and offered me a check and all that kind of great stuff. And, it went on to sell millions of copies. It's not that kind of story. I looked at that unfinished work for weeks and a couple of more months and no answer at first. And then I started hearing this voice, you're not going to get paid for this. It's not going to get published. No one's waiting for it anymore. You're off the hook in that respect. But damn it, you're going to finish this. You are going to finish this. And not for anybody else but me. No last minute calls, no collaborators, jumping in on that. I didn't reach out for help from any quarters at that time. I had to finish this thing for me. And I did. Again, it was an effort and a half, but I kept pushing, I kept pushing, I kept pushing. And the characters talked to me every now and then, and I would put down even the worst possible lines and some of the lamest sequence of events and skimpy on the action details or the descriptions of what was going on in the scene. Just whatever I could with every panel, I got something down until I completed that first rough draft. I reached the end of it. I even went back and started tweaking a few things. And no, it did not get published. But here's what I learned. The scariest thing that a writer faces isn't rejection. It isn't the deadlines. It isn't even the sense of failure. It's the moment when you start to believe the lie that everything you did before was luck or a joke or a fluke and you can't do it anymore. That you're a fraud, that you've lost it, that whatever you had is gone. That lie is so seductive and so powerful. I mean, it wants to bury you and seal the tomb and leave you there in that dark, cold place of doubt, fear, and insecurity. And if you don't break out of it, if you don't push your way through that, you will begin to live the lie. So I still carry the disappointment that, it didn't get published and all that. And, every now and then I remember moments like this where I talk about it and I remember what it felt like. I remember all of that. And I still don't know why it became so incredibly hard to write something that I was so accustomed to being able to write. Yeah, there was a pandemic going on. Yes, there was a lot of doubt in the world, and maybe that was a part of it. Maybe, but it's in my head. That hasn't come through as the conscious reason why I was so emotionally overwhelmed by everything else that I couldn't write because I was able to write some other things, different things, you know. But this project, no. But the truth of the matter, not the lie, the truth of the matter is that sometimes the work is incredibly hard. Sometimes it's harder than anything you've ever faced before, but you still have to do it. You have to do it, not for the client and not for your reputation and not for your audience and not for the dollars. You do it for yourself to prove to yourself that you are still able to progress, that you are committed to the craft, to the passion, to the love, to the art that you've embraced, that's calling to you, that you haven't been able to walk away from, really. Because it is a lot of what you live and breathe. It's what you want. It's what you've earned. You have to complete projects for yourself so that you can do it for others. Because otherwise, that's the scariest place to be, is when you don't believe in yourself anymore. That's a terrible place to be. And many of us have moments of doubt. As my mother used to say, they can knock you down, but you only lose if you don't get back up. So, whatever projects are giving you a hard time, roll up your sleeves, get ready to kick some butt. And continue to come back for more episodes of Simmons Says. We'll continue to help you find out what happens next in your stories. And then we'll help you get there. Take care.